Welcome to Systemize Your Success. I'm Dr. Steve Day. Today, we're going to be talking about outsourcing your work, getting started with creating systems, and basically how to free your time. This episode will be particularly useful for you if you're a solopreneur, so you haven't got anyone in your team, or you're a small business owner and you're still doing so much of the admin and day-to-day that you can't find time to do the stuff you really should be doing. It's all about how to get stuff out of your head in a really efficient way and hand it over affordably to an assistant who can do that work for you. Stick around to the end because I'm going to go through the entire process to take you from absolutely no idea what to do to the point where you've actually got an assistant on board and who's doing work for you and therefore freeing your time. And do remember to hit subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. For example, next week I'm going to be talking about how to do the same process if you've got a team in place. If you've already outsourced some of your work, and maybe you've already got some assistants, but now you're looking to actually create better, more robust and more scalable systems in your business, that's going to be the focus of next week. So do remember to hit subscribe. So whatever stage in business you're at, these 2 episodes will cover you from the very start or getting stuff off your plate to the point where you're actually delegating entire systems to your team.
So the question is this: how do entrepreneurs like us, who don't have an endless supply of cash, how do we leverage the best apps, virtual assistants, automation tools and systems to scale our businesses, increase our profits and have more time to do what we love to do each day? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name's Dr. Steve Day and this is Systemize Your Success.
Okay, so this episode, like many of my episodes, came about because a conversation I had recently with a new client who's joined us. They are, in effect, a solopreneur. They have got a few people helping them out, so boots on the ground, but the whole operational side of the business is done by the business owner. This person is still doing all of their admin, they're still posting on social media, they're still doing all their invoicing, they're chasing people up. They're basically doing everything that makes the business work behind the scenes. And they came to me because they wanted to change that. They want to start actually creating a business that serves them, that allows them to focus more on serving their clients in the highest way they can, and also have more time to do more higher value work, to do more leadership, to grow the business, and to have more free time to actually spend doing stuff they love to do. After all, that's why they started their business, to have freedom, but they found their business has now taken away that freedom. And that is a story I empathize with massively, as that happened to me for over 15 years when I was a complete solopreneur and basically doing everything myself. And it's what I'm going to tell you today is the process that I went through. I made loads of mistakes along the way. It took me a lot longer to get there than just for our clients when we help them, because all the things I did wrong, I've now realized were wrong. And now when we teach people to do this, we can do it far quicker in a far more structured and planned way. That means we actually get to that result we want, which is somebody doing stuff effectively far quicker than I ever could have done in the early days when I was figuring all this out. So if you are in that position where you're a solopreneur or you're just a busy business owner, you are still doing far too much of the admin, you're still involved with all the little things you know you shouldn't be doing, but you just don't have anyone else to help you. If that's the pain you're feeling, that is a warning sign or a red flag to say this is the time you really need to hire an assistant. To do this as early as possible is ideal. I.e., do this before you get to the point where you're feeling overwhelmed, because when we take anything new on, it's going to actually increase our workload for a while until we get proficient at it, and we still going to have to learn a load of stuff to be able to, for example, how do you hire somebody, how do you delegate work effectively, how do you get the stuff in your head down, what do you give them, like all of the stuff which I'm going to talk about today. You need to have time and headspace to do that. So the earlier you start this process, in my advice, is the better. So many people talk about not creating systems until you get to a certain stage in business. And I think that is false advice. I think the earlier you can do this, the better. Because we're not here talking about, okay, we're going to create a complex system that maps out our entire sales process. Because if you haven't got a sales process or a marketing process or a client onboarding process is absolutely rock solid, it's going to change and change and change loads in the beginning. What we're talking about here, though, is creating simple systems for the things that are repeating in your business, the things that you can effectively get off your plate. And it doesn't need to be the final version of it. If we can just get whatever you're doing right now, whatever the status quo is, however bad that system is or how the way you do it, however inefficient it is, but if you as the business owner are doing it, it means you're not doing something else. So if we can hand that over to another person, and then they can then do that for us, they can be the one that helps to optimize that process, to make it more efficient, to actually figure out a better way to do it. And in the future, if it ends up that that's no longer needed, that's fine. That's just the nature of business. So much stuff that I've outsourced, I've systemized, I've documented in the past, and probably like 90% over the years of what I did in the early days is no longer how I run my business. That is just the nature of business evolution. And you have to be prepared that you've got to hand stuff over to free yourself to be able to take your business to the next level. But in doing that, yeah, some of the stuff you hand over now isn't going to be used going forward. And that's totally fine. That's normal in your business. I think people have a mindset block. I spoke to someone recently and they didn't want to get started with the process of creating systems because they didn't feel they were ready. But they were feeling overwhelmed. They were feeling the stress and the pressure of having too much to do, making too many decisions, because what they were doing right now was just relying solely or too much on them as the business owner. So wherever you're at in the how you do your work, as in the process or systems behind your work, now is the right time to start thinking about how you can offload that in a reproducible way to get stuff done to a high level. And then therefore it doesn't have to be you that's doing it. And then, as I said before, that other person, whoever that is, can be involved in the optimization process. So therefore, they are the one spending their time thinking about it while you're now moving on to something of a higher value. So this is the way we do it. This is the way we teach it in our Systemize Your Success Academy. And if you're interested in learning more about how we can help you do this with all the frameworks and systems and courses that we allow you and your team to do this really efficiently in a standardized and proven way, then check out join.sys.academy. That's join.sys.academy. And there you'll find details about our academy and how you can join and get involved. Okay, so let's walk through this entire process. There's roughly 6 stages to this. I'm going to walk you through each of those stages. But before we get started, I want to define very clearly what the goal or the outcome of this is. Our goal is for you to have an assistant in place who you are confident in delegating work to. We want them to be doing the work that is currently taking up your time, that is stopping you from doing your higher value work. What that work is will be pretty unique to you. So we need to define how we address what that is and then how we hand that over. We also need to be able to do this with confidence and also visibility and in a managed way, so you do not feel like the management of this person is another burden you have to take on. We want to be confident that when that work is done, it's done to a standard that we are happy with and we are confident it has actually been done. We don't want to be delegating stuff out, hoping for the best, or spending our time asking, was that ever done, or checking in on it. We need a really structured way to do this to make sure that when we offload stuff, it's done right, first time, every time, and you're confident that is happening. That is the only way we truly get to free our headspace and our time without just becoming more stressed. That is a mistake that many people make, is they think it's just about hiring an assistant, chucking stuff at them, and that's going to make your life better. But if we don't do this in a structured way, I can actually make your life worse. You'll end up losing that person or sacking them, or they'll leave and you'll be back to square one, probably worse off than you were before, because now you've got the headache of all the extra work that's been created in the meantime. So let's walk through this really carefully. The first and crucial step is to actually decide what you're going to give this person to do, and to be really mindful about the type of work you're giving them. You can't just give somebody a bunch of stuff randomly and hope for the best. If you give someone creative work and admin work and sales work and research work and detail orientated work all mixed together, it's going to be very hard to find someone who's brilliant at all of it. And they're probably going to get really stressed out and be bad at some things and good at others, and it's going to be a bit of a mess. So if we do a little bit of thought behind this, we can find somebody who's going to help us take over the biggest chunk of our time, as in like hand over the biggest chunk of our time to them. So therefore we can free ourselves up and we can focus on the other stuff, and then eventually we'll hire other people to do the other types of work. To do this, we create something called the Personal Systemization Plan. This is when you track the tasks that you're doing on a daily basis. So for example, am I checking my emails for my business? Am I doing some invoicing? Am I creating a draft proposal? Am I doing some sales or marketing? Am I doing my website? Am I creating course content? Am I recording podcasts? Am I publishing podcasts? Like whatever it is you are doing, just start noting down what you're doing each day. And also note down, is this a daily task, a weekly task, or a monthly task? And ideally also, what kind of time am I spending on this? Is it, a 1-minute task? Is it a 10-minute task? Does it take you an hour? So you can be really specific about this and actually measure how much time you take, or you can just call it a low, medium, or high time task. That's probably the easiest way to get started if you're not into just getting analytical and using time tracking software. That is a barrier that we don't need. The point here is to give you a clear task list with a general idea about, over the course of a month, how long is this stuff taking you? And the other thing to consider is, how easy would it be for you to give to somebody to do? So if it's something you know really well that doesn't involve a huge amount of your brain and thinking and decision making, then it's probably something that could be easily done by somebody else. However, if it's something that you are really involved with, like I know coaching a client or something, or writing up a proposal, and you don't have any system behind that at the moment, then maybe keep hold of that for now and delegate the easy stuff first. The other important point to note here is we're delegating stuff we are already doing. We're not saying, oh, you know what, I'd love to put my podcast into blogs, or I'd love to be using TikTok and Instagram, but now I'm only doing it on YouTube, and therefore I'm going to hire somebody to help with that stuff. That is important in business, but not if you're already overwhelmed. Because bringing somebody else in to do, whatever work you're not currently doing will only generate more work for you. So at this stage, the goal is simply to offload what you're currently doing, however good or bad that is, and then you can look at, okay, what capacity is left in the team now we've got this new person in, what more could we do? But start with the stuff you're currently doing. That's really, really important. Now we know the type of tasks we could be delegating to this new person. If we group those together, so as I mentioned before, like marketing type tasks, creative type tasks, it could be detail orientated or admin or spreadsheet tasks, whatever it is, like group them together into the type of personality that sort of would be good at that type of task. And then you have an idea of who you need to hire. So you can hire an admin person, you can hire a content creating person, you can hire a sales person, and all the tasks that fit into that category, that's what we're going to give them to do. There may be some other admin stuff that anybody could do, and that's fine. So you can add a few of those extra bits once they've got started. But for now, I want to focus on the group of tasks that is taking you the most amount of time, hire that specific type of person first, and then offload that. And then you can then think about, okay, do we need another person for some other work, or can that person maybe take on a bit of extra stuff as well? Once we've got to that stage, we're now ready to start the hiring process. So all we've done so far is note down what you're doing for a couple of weeks, decided that which bits are possible for you to actually figure out how to delegate to somebody else. And I'll talk about how you do that in a second. And then group them together to decide the personality type of the person we're going to hire. Then we start the hiring process. Now, you can use like a hiring system like we have, the Recruit Right hiring system, or you can go through an agency, or you can just wing it and sort of go on to onlinejobs.ph or Upwork or Fiverr and sort of find someone that way and just hope for the best. Whichever way you do it, it's going to take you, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4, to find someone good after you've gone through a bit of elimination, done some applications, test tasks, done an interview, and now you decide, yeah, I'm going to hire this particular person. So you've now got 2 or 3 or 4 weeks maybe to actually start recording the work you're going to hand over. Now, this is the point where some people sort of balk when I talk about like documenting what you're doing, but we're going to do this super, super simple. All you're going to do is hit record on a screen recording app. The one we recommend is ScreenPal. And if you head over to sys.academy/guides, you'll see a link to ScreenPal. And there's also a podcast about ScreenPal, which tells you why we love it and some of the cool stuff you can do with it. And there's a link to get a discount as well on that website. So sys.academy/guides. /tools. So sys.academy/tools, guides is something different. And so on there, you'll find a link, as I said. So once you've got a screen recording app, you're going to then hit record next time you do the task and just do the task as you would anyway, but narrate yourself through it. So talk through what you're doing, just like you were showing somebody who sat next to you in the office and they're looking over your shoulder on their first day of their job, and you're showing them, hey, this is how I want you to do this. And you're talking them through just like you were training them one-on-one. That's what we want to do, to create a training video. It doesn't need to be polished. It doesn't need to be perfect. It can contain mistakes. Just correct your mistakes and explain how they should do it. And the person, if they're intelligent, which hopefully they are after your recruitment process, will just figure it out. So the idea is just as quickly as possible over that period while you're going through the recruitment to be recording some of the stuff you're doing. Then when they arrive, you're going to have this bank of videos available for them to actually start doing stuff immediately without you having to actually spend any time training them. That is absolutely essential for it not to become an overwhelming process of you onboarding this new person. And as you record these videos, you want to put them somewhere that's really easy for this person to find, not in some folder, which is like your operation manuals folder or something, or your SOPs. And they've got to go and search every time they want to try and do a task, but instead on their task board. A task board for me is a board, say on Asana that we use. It could be on Trello, it could be on ClickUp, Zoho Tasks. It doesn't really matter. Just a Kanban style board with some columns for daily, weekly, monthly, and periodic tasks. We can also use it for ad hoc management of tasks, so for just tasks that are working on right now and priorities, for example. But in this case, we're focusing on the stuff that's happening, recurring in your business, because that is the stuff that you are currently doing right now. So each time you record a video, create a little task placeholder on their task board. So if it's a daily task, stick in the daily column. If it's a weekly task, put it in the weekly column, and then put a link to the video you've recorded on that task on their board. Now, when that person starts on day one, they can be directed to go to their task board, and on their task board will be all of their daily tasks, their weekly tasks with the dates that they're due, so the day of the week it's due, the monthly tasks with the day of the month it's due, and any periodic tasks, so quarterly or yearly, whatever. And now they've actually got a completely clear plan as to what they need to do, when they need to do it, and because you've got the video, how they need to do it as well. Doing this simple process, planning a little bit ahead, recording some videos, and then putting them onto a task board is how you can make this experience of hiring your first assistant work like an absolute dream and get you that result you want of freeing your time. It's that simple, it's not complicated, but if you do want extra help with doing this, if you want to get all the frameworks, the hiring process, the task boards templates, if you want to get recording your work training, if you want to have this person being trained up for you on how to use all of this stuff, then head over to join.sys.academy and check out our academy and community platform where we share all of our courses and content on there for you to then actually do all this without having to think or figure anything out yourself. Either way, I wish you all the best with bringing your first assistant on board. And please do hit subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. For example, next week, I'm going to be talking about how you go through the process of systemizing your existing systems when you've already got a team in place. How do you document and make that into a standard way of working to allow you to scale your business and also to protect your business if any of your existing knowledgeable workers leave and just take knowledge with them. We want to avoid that at all costs because it's a real massive hit to a small business owners when someone we've been training or working with for weeks or months or years suddenly leaves the business, and sadly it happens all too often. So we want to be able to get whatever they're doing down in a way that other people can do it for them, or you, should I say, so that anybody can do that work in their absence. This is also brilliant because people want to go on holiday from time to time, and it's great if you've actually got the entire system documented so that somebody else can step in and help out with it when they're away without it all falling to pieces. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. Okay?